All right, it is the top of the hour. I think we will get started. And Sash, can you see my screen?
David, I can absolutely see it. It looks beautiful.
Great colors, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, good day, everybody. My name is David Haynes, and I'm your host and presenter today. Welcome to ID8's presentation on Bluebeam Revu for construction. Here's a little bit about me. My background is as a registered architect, project management certified professional, and been a contractor. My resume includes running an architectural practice and being a commercial general contractor for over 15 years. I'm a graduate of the University of Arizona and have worked as a project manager, contractor, developer, and construction manager for a national retailer. I currently provide business process analysis, data integration, and management solutions for AEC customers across the United States involved in the AEC industry. Sash Kazimijad will be serving as proctor for this webinar. Please place any questions in the Q&A window in your GoToWebinar console, and we'll have time during this hour long to answer those questions. This webinar is sponsored by ID8. ID8 Incorporated has been serving the AEC community for over 25 years. This longevity comes from an unflagging commitment to quality training, support, and customer service. Our technical staff has extensive industry experience, so we really understand your processes and business issues. Our agenda today will focus on the following. What is the problem and what tools will solve them, and solutions that help reduce the problem in data and construction. Note, there are two topics in yellow on our agenda that are only available in Revu Extreme. ID8 wants to show you the full range of the Bluebeam solutions. If form creation or link to Excel would save your company time and energy, please reach out to our sales team for the cross-grade of existing licenses to Revu Extreme. For many construction projects, architects, engineers, and general contractors and subcontractors are communicating at a rapid pace and about a myriad of topics. Two common ones are requests for information, which is really contractors to architects or designers, and then those designers, architects, supplemental information instructions, which are really the designers back to the contractors. With all these questions and answers and revisions, it's hard to track and even harder to keep track of who said what and when. So this webinar is all about getting your project faster access to data that can be used, disseminated, and documented in real time, reduce the possibility of information loss, and increase responsibility and accountability, reducing project risk. So let us now go to the presentation. So first off, for those of you familiar with Bluebeam Revu, I have it in the light mode because I think it works a little easier on people's eyes in these webinars. And also I've changed my mouse to a dark color. People generally think they can see it a little better, and so I'm always trying to make it so you guys can see things better. Anyway, what I have is Revu open, and I have a PDF of a project open. And first thing we're going to talk about is punch lists. And the workflow for that punch list is really we're going to create some spaces, and then we're going to create a stamp and use tools and markup lists to kind of keep track of punch lists. Punch list items really deal with issues and when people go through and inspect portions of the work. And it can be done by a myriad of people, anywhere from architects doing final punch lists to subcontractors doing punch lists of their own work to general contractors walking through the building looking for safety issues and the like. One of the things I want to point out is we'll be modifying profiles some today, meaning I'll be looking at two different profiles. So I'm starting off at this beginning with just the out-of-the-box review. So the first thing we're going to do is create spaces. And spaces is this icon right here, and I'll sort of highlight it right there. So spaces are right there. I'm going to click that to bring it out. And spaces are your way to show areas that you're doing punch list items in, whether it's an individual room or areas of rooms or site. And so we're just going to create a new, add a space, and then we're going to come right down here and create a space like that. My mouse is having trouble. There's always some technical issue. Let me do it that way. I had it on a pad. Let me get it out from pad. It wasn't. There we go. And here comes the add space, and I can give it any name I want. So I'm just going to call it Conference 265. All right. And now you can see that that space is highlighted. And now you will see that when we put markups, the space will be noted if the markup happens in this space in here. When the markup happens here, the space will be added to this column called spaces right there. What's the advantage of that? Very clearly, now when I do my reports and I do sorting and filtering, for those of you familiar with markup lists, I can now sort and filter by space, which allows me to then identify who needs to do what in that space by adding one more item, which is really adding the word responsibility. For this markup, I could use any, for this punch list, excuse me, I could use anything, but responsibility seems to make sense. So I'm going to do that through the markup list columns, manage columns, custom columns. I'm going to add the word. Hopefully my typing's good today, and I'm going to add responsibility. And the type I'd like it to be is maybe a choice. I could leave it as text, but a choice, if I know I have 3 subcontractors, I could put each of those 3 or 5 subcontractors in. I'm just going to leave it as text for this moment and say, okay. And you see how responsibility is there. Okay. And here it is now down in my markup list. And I could move this around as you're familiar with markup lists. I could move it to the beginning. I could take spaces. I can get this thing to start to look like I want it to look. And then the next part of this, so I've got the markup list kind of started to the way I want it to be. Now I'm going to create a stamp, and stamps a lot of people don't deal with. So let me kind of go through stamps. They're under tools, stamps, and here's the ones that are out of the box, -1. I did create one here that has my initials, but most of these come from out of the box. There's several things we're going to look at. We're going to create one, but there's 2 other items I want you to note. Note that we can import stamps. So if somebody else in your company or organization or in another organization has created a stamp, you can share those stamps. So if the architect has some stamps he wants you to use, you could import his ones that he's created, or vice versa. We can also change the stamp folder. I have mine in the default, but you could then put those stamps on a network drive so everybody could get to them by importing them. Because normally stamps are located, if not out of the box, they're located on your local hard drive. So let's go through now and create a stamp, which is right here. And here, I'm going to move this over so we can kind of see it a little better. It gives me the author's name. I can give it a subject name. So I'm going to be looking at low voltage. So I'm going to call this LV. And I'm going to actually create this. Yeah, there's some options I have of the template of the stamp itself. I like for this text with border. The size is related to the size on this particular drawing, which I have determined to be 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. If I type correctly again, all right. And now I say, okay, now I could do and move this around. I could change the shape. The shape is just a simple rectangle. So if I wanted a circle, I could do that. But I'm okay with it looking the way it is. Now, as soon as I need to make sure when selecting this, I look up here and see if I've done this correctly, okay? But then I also want to look at the properties, and the properties is right here. And the reasons I want to look at the properties because I want to deal with the subject, because that'll be another way that I want to define things. And so subject is low voltage. Notice here I could create project client. I can add some more metadata in there, but I think we're fine. And so now we're going to save as. And here's where it takes me to the normal location out of the box. And I could save it there. That's fine. So now it is saved, and you will see, when it's done here, let's close it. All right. And now I come back here, and because it's been saved in the normal location as per the folder structure, when I come into tool and stamps, you'll see now it's there and usable. Notice I want to show you here also right there. I could edit it if it still doesn't work right for me. But now I'm able to, if I want to, save these to tool chests if I want to. But let's just now just say I've got an issue with low voltage here, right there. I could move it if I want to. See how it has, and it didn't like the space. Here we go. I got it inside the space in totality, so it gave me the space right. I could then add the responsibility at this moment, and maybe this is Joe's TV sub. I can also add status. So I can now start to work with this, and others can start to work with this to start to do the punch list. I could even add comments right now at this time. So I can say escutcheon plate not installed at TV. And there it is. I've been able to create a stamp. I've been able to use them. So now let's go and look at how this could be built out. I've shown you one, and you can, okay, that's nice, David, but how would that really work? I'm going to go to another PDF here that has a lot of stamps, and you say, okay, now I can see what David's talking about because there's a whole bunch of stamps, so on and so forth. And what I'm able to do is, remember I said you could say things to tool chest out of the box. They have a profile called field issues. And you can see here how, there we go, there's all of them there. You can see in the tool chest, in this particular profile, these tool chests have been created, and it's very easy to create this sort of toolbox of stamps that can be used, that have comments already attached. I can go into an area and say, okay, I'm in room 247 here, okay, and there's an exposed wire, which I know is EW. I simply click, and there's an exposed wire, maybe in this corner. And I can start and pick and click and pick and click, and I can do this on a tablet. I can do it on a Surface Pro out in the field, and I can go through very easily and just take care of it. And a lot of the markup list has already been fulfilled for me. Very easy to do. And I can deal with the responsibility and all of these other to continue to fill it out. Whether I do this in the field or whether I do it back in my office, doesn't really matter. Then lastly, when I'm done with all this work, like this is just a typical maybe a punch list that's been done near the end, I can use what's called a PDF summary. And a PDF summary happens right here at the bottom of the markup list. Click on that, PDF summary. I can do this on one sheets or multiple sheets. I'm just by adding, I could put a whole package together, but maybe I'm just doing the punch on this particular second floor. And for those of you who've seen my other webinars, you'll know that I've gone through and discussed how in this markup summary, it gives you a lot of options. I can decide what columns I want to include, and maybe I don't want the layer, even though it's on this list, I really don't want it for this PDF summary, so I can uncheck it. I can add other columns that are not for whatever set of reasons I may want, maybe file name, maybe something else, you know. And what I really like is this file and sort. And file and sort allows me to maybe sort by, I only want some of them. Maybe I want, sorry, let me do that again.
Hey, David?
Yeah.
While you're starting it up, maybe,
yep.
Yeah, maybe I'll address some questions.
Yeah, I'm right at the end of the punch list, so yes, please.
Perfect. Yeah. So we had actually a few questions that were pretty much the same ones that I wanted to address. And so you saw that David made a custom space. And so that's a great situation in which if you had a scanned PDF or somebody handed you a PDF and didn't give you any spaces in there, that's a great opportunity to do that. But for those of you that are using Revit, one of the things that we highly recommend, and I tell you what, your contractor will definitely thank you very much for this, is when you're using Revit, instead of going to File Print to make a PDF, you want to go to the Add-ins tab in Revit and look for the Bluebeam ribbon or the Bluebeam panel under the Add-ins tab. And the reason why is if you generate your PDFs using the Bluebeam plugin, there is an option over there to export room data as spaces. And what that'll do is it'll take your room information from Revit and automatically create these spaces in your PDFs. I can tell you will save a ton of time and make a lot of people very happy. So thanks to everybody for asking that question. I think that's a very important one, and I think it also really emphasizes the importance for those of you that are using Bluebeam CAD or Bluebeam Extreme. It emphasizes the importance for using the Bluebeam plugin versus the Bluebeam PDF driver that can be found under any print menu. So wanted to address that while David was reopening this PDF.
Thank you, Sash. That's great. That's great. I've shown that in some other webinars that I've done. So yeah, it's really the way to go, because then all this manual stuff you don't have to do. So we're going to go back to the markup summary. I'm just going to add the date. There we go. All right. Say OK. And now it creates it. Fingers crossed. I got 172. So this is, was there any, while this is doing this, were there any other questions, Sash, or was that the main one?
There was a couple other questions that were the same as well, and okay. This is a common theme actually, where that people have questions. So the question really is, hey, if I let's say replace a PDF page with a new one, or I do some updates, will these comments or these spaces transfer over to the newly placed PDF? Do you want to answer that, David, or would you like me to do that?
No, please do. I'm just.
Yeah, no worries. So you should be able to handle that operation. Typically, like if you do replace pages, there should be an option in there. I can't remember exactly what it says, but to retain the comments. That's one way of doing it. You can also like insert comments from another PDF. That's another way that you can get those things to kind of transfer over, copy and paste if something goes wrong. So there's definitely ways of getting these markups and space information to transfer over to the new PDF. So anyhow, just wanted to kind of mention that as well.
Thank you, Sash. I think I've got everything back running again, and here's the PDF summary now done. I left it alone and just left it by subject sorting. But what I really want to show you is now someone's looking at it and they're trying to figure out what the heck is this carpentry on the floor plan that was done, in Office 226. Where is that again? And they'll be able to click right here, and it'll actually take you to where it is at in the document. So that's the benefit of doing it this way. It's very easy then to keep track and who's done what, because you can also do I didn't show you, but you can do a check mark that says complete, and that's just another column, and then you could sort or filter by saying show me all that's not been checked complete. So anyway, there's lots of different ways, a lot of different workflows that you can adopt to carry this through to keep that one source of truth going forward. So that completes the punch list things. We're going to now go back to the next topic, which is RFIs, which is request for information, which I also hear people call, the request for information coming from the contractor to the design team, and then the architect's supplemental instructions, which is often the design team coming back to the contractor and subcontractor. So what we're going to do here is, it really follows a workflow. Is we're going to use a template. Bluebeam has a standard template we could use as a starting point. We're going to modify the form slightly, and then we're going to deal with signatures and how to hyperlink it. So I'm back in this same document that has a lot of work on it, and now we're going to create an RFI, and that's pretty request for information. So that's pretty easy to do here by using tool markup, and I'm going to use one of my favorite, which is the Cloud Plus. And I'm going to put the Cloud Plus right there. Now, if you have a tool chest that has these already in there, that's fine. I'm just using something straight out of the box, and I'm just going to call it RFI. I'm going to start off that it's RFI 1001. So I've created the markup. I know that's the spot I want to ask the RFI question. Now come in here to File, New from Template, and I'm just going to use this RFI form, which is one out of the box. Clearly, you can import templates. You can create templates fairly easy, as you'll see. And this is just a straightforward 8.5 by 11 kind of sheet that you see RFIs that I could add. I could add my logo to, so on and so forth. So want to make sure you understand the forms are only available in Revu Extreme as we talked about in the agenda. So if this fits your needs and you don't have a Revu Extreme, you could certainly talk to Ideate Sales about it. So we're going to come down here and we're going to go to the forms section, which is, that's the signatures. There's the forms. And you see all the blue kind of boxes are all of the different forms that can be filled out. And you'll see when I save it as RFI number 1, how I'm going to be able to fill it. But I want to add one more box to it, and adding is fairly easy. Right up here at the very top, it gives you options from a text box to a radio button to a check box to a list box to a drop down. I'm going to do something fairly easy and just add a checkbox. And you see here how it's added it to the bottom. And this is in the order of how it is tabbed, meaning that when you go through and this is saved, this is the order. So if I want this to last, not, I could move it. I'm going to rename it and call it completed. There we go. And I want it as the last one. So now let's go down into properties here, and I can look at this checkbox by giving it a tooltip right up here. So that's the properties button I've used here on my left panel. And now this gives me more options that I can have. And maybe I just want to say answered with a question. All right. And you can see how I can give orientation. I can lock it. I can give it colors. I can do all this kind of work to make it look and feel. I'm not going to go down that path. You guys should pretty much know how to do that. All right. So then what I'd like to do is do one last time and show you one other thing that I find to be one of the most interesting things about Bluebeam Revu, and I'm just going through here, is the digital signature. So I don't even need to sign them anymore and then have the rescan. The Bluebeam Revu has the ability to do digital signatures, and I'll just show you how that works. After I save this, so let me first save it as. Save as. I'm going to put this on my desktop just so I can find it. And I'm just going to call it RFI-001. All right. So now that's complete. Now I can go through and fill it out. And filling it out is incredibly easy. So I'm just not going to, you'll be able to see this is just real easy to work. And then I hit tab and I can move to the next one. I do want to include that 001. But I want to come down and show you that what happens when I'm done with filling out all this form. There's, you know how to fill out. But when I click right here, it brings up this signing. So it works off of digital signatures, and I've created one, but let me just show you how a new one might be created. So I just hit new, and I can browse for existing, or I can create a new one. So here I would just add my name. If I have, but I have not that, I have and then I could add my email address here too. All right. To get the highest level of security, you're going to need a password. So wealth of passwords that we have. And now when I say okay, I've completed the form, and now it's even added my name, and it's digitally signed, including, sorry, it's a little hard to see, but the date and time I've signed it. So you actually, if you receive this PDF, and let's suppose you're the general contractor, I'm the architect in this, you'll know exactly when I signed it and when it was sent off to you. So there's none of when did he send it, how did he send it, so on and so forth. Very easy, again, to keep that one level of truth. But that finishes the RFI. Now I want to attach this RFI document to the PDF itself. So let's go back to where I was in the PDF, and now I just use the hyperlink, which is tools, hyperlink, And that's going to ask me to, there we go, find the rectangle. And now what I'd like to do is to have it jump. And for those of you familiar with having done webinars with me before, the jump to must be an open document already. So I go there, and that does me. And now, if I'm the person reviewing this, what the heck is this RFI 001? What's it about? I simply click, and it opens it up for me. All right, so now I've got a process here that's starting to work. Now, how do I package all of this together? And that's called a PDF drawing package. It creates a combination of PDFs, such as as-built or these RFIs, because I want to keep track of the RFIs, who said what, back and forth, so on and so forth. So that is simply done here through File, Create PDF Package. Now this gives you this Windows-like environment, Windows Explorer-like environment where I can add folders, add documents. So I'm going to start adding some files. I'll not do a whole lot, but I'll show you. So I can add that. There's the RFI. I'm going to add let me add a whole folder. So you can see, I'd add the PDF also, but let's suppose it's part of a bigger folder, which is really what you'd all be interested in. So let me go in here. This will take me just a second to drill down into this wealth of stuff that we all have. All right. And let's suppose it's part of this plan set package here. And I hit OK. You know what I didn't do? I didn't do add folder. I apologize. I changed my mind on what I was going to do in the middle, and that always gets me in trouble. So let's go back, and I want to add a folder. Remember, we said plan set was what we want. We get the select folder. And now this is going to take a second, depending on how many files I have in that. It's moving fairly quickly. The reason I wanted to show you the folder is the ability to see, here's the plan set. You can now see that's going to give me icon sort of previews of everything. So I don't have to wonder what is this particular drawing, what does it have in it? I can kind of get some notion of it, but also I can add descriptions that I'm going to be able to search on. So I have this ability to really get down and add some more data to things. I can add descriptions and I can search. And then when I'm done, I can save as. And let's go back to my desktop again. And maybe what this is RFI complete package. Maybe there's been RFIs throughout the entire thing. So I do that. It's now done. And what's interesting about this is it's archived it in a way that if those PDFs then disappear, let's suppose they're archived to a SharePoint drive or something else. If I open up this and click on that, it'll then have held that together for me. And so it's a archival and a way for you to know who did what and when, showing the responsibility. All right. That gets me done with the RFI with only one issue along the way. Sash, do we have any questions about the RFI portion?
We have just kind of a few general questions, and so I'll kind of just let's see. One of them kind of deals with any sort of comments that you kind of make on a PDF. Does that information become available when the PDF is added to a studio session? So do you want to go ahead and answer that one, or?
Well, if the comments are made within the markups, then the markup list does exist within the studio session, but it wouldn't exist in that left-handed panel of discussions back and forth that you get in sessions. So I don't know what they call that panel all of a sudden.
Like the chat panel.
The chat panel, or the what every step has been made panel, as I kind of call it. Yep. It wouldn't be included that, but clearly in the markup, because the markup list does get carried over when it's lifted to a studio session, so it exists there. That the benefit of sessions is that sort of ongoing record that you can print out that really describes the chat in a just-in-time or exactly as it happened in a historical kind of view, as I call it. That at 2 p.m. on January 2nd, Sally said this, and 3 hours later, Joe said no, and those kind of things. So
Yep.
that kind of chat doesn't exist, but it would say that if I set the responsibility to Sally on January 2nd, and Sally came back and said completed on January 3rd, then the markup list, if the responsibility was filled out correctly, would show that.
Right, and that's exactly right. And then that kind of follows along with another comment about custom columns during a Bluebeam Studio session. And yes, David, you're laughing because, go ahead, explain it.
No, I was laughing because I should have done something on Studio Sessions clearly, because that's where all the questions are. So I didn't quite hear the question in totality. If you need to give it to me again,
Yeah, absolutely. So the ability to add custom columns to your PDF during a Bluebeam Studio session. And so the answer for that one, if you're not aware of this, is that at this time, you cannot add any custom columns to your PDFs during a Bluebeam Studio session. So it is definitely recommended that if you do need to do custom columns, you want to add them before you upload that PDF to a session. And then to kind of backtrack to the comments, if you are uploading a PDF into a Bluebeam Studio session that already has markups on it with comments, those markups will transfer over to the studio session, but they become locked, and nobody can edit those comments until that PDF is essentially out of the session and downloaded locally once again. So those two kind of double up together.
Thank you for adding that part about locking. That's a great add-on. So.
Yes, absolutely. And then, David, we did get another question. It's one that I probably need to research a little bit on my own. Maybe you have the answer for it, but I had a couple of people ask, can you add photos to the RFI and punch list items?
Yes, you can add it to the markup.
Yes.
That you can add. I've not found a way, and we do a little research after. I don't know that I went through. You mean into the actual, you mean actually into this document here that I'm...
I believe that's one of it, but then also, any sort of the markups that you put on the PDF. As you know, we can add images and 360-degree images to certain ones. Have to figure out which ones you can and cannot add them to. So we can post more info on that one, I think, for folks.
So when we say we're going to give you information, comes out about a week later through our blog. You will see a recap of all the questions and answers, and that gives Sash and I a couple of days to make sure we give you the absolute best answers. So watch when that comes out via your Twitter feed, or you can just go to our website, to our blog in about a week, and you'll see the answers to those questions. Absolutely.
So be on the lookout for that. So David, you can proceed.
Thank you. I'm going to now go talk about quantity link. And so one of the first things I want to show you, there's a process that you'll need to make sure you do before this happens. So setting up quantity link, I just show the slide so everybody can stare at it for just a second. It only exists in Review Extreme, as I said. So when I say make sure Excel is closed, to make sure you have it set up correctly, Excel cannot be open. And then you go to Review Administrator Plugins, which is this screen capture I've done. Bluebeam Administrator plugins. You want to make sure this is checked. If it is not, and you want to use quantity link, you can check it and say okay, and then when Bluebeam and Excel starts up again, you will be able to have that. So for one of the first sort of checking to make sure, troubleshooting, and it's not working, make sure you check under Bluebeam Administrator plugins and make sure where it says Microsoft Excel quantity link shows. All right, back to where I was here. All right, so we're going to be dealing with Excel and PDFs to see how we can make some attachment between them. I get asked, is this only for contractors? Well, it kind of depends what kind of work you do. If you're an architect and you got to do any kind of Excel work off of somebody else's work that has been given to you in PDF, and you didn't get an AutoCAD file or a Revit file, certainly this is something you could use. So I'm going to give you, of course, an estimating example, but just think that any combination of where you're taking data from a PDF that you don't have the authoring software to, and Excel, and how would I do that? So the first thing you'd want to do, and I'm going to just bring up Excel here. All right. Is to, in my mind, the first thing to do is to create what's called a template or a setup sheet, in which just briefly you're just outlining what you're trying to capture in this case. In this case, I've got a second floor of an office building, and I've got 3 types of flooring, and I want to do a quantity, and then I want to do some calculations to give me a total. Again, if you're an architect on this and you go, but I don't do estimating of flooring, I get that. But just think of any time you don't have the authoring document like a Revu file, you got a PDF from somebody, and now what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to take that PDF and you're going to be able to make calculations off of it, and then when the PDF is changed, you're going to be able to get the update of that too. So, all right. Now that I've kind of gone through that, let's go through the process. So the first thing we're going to do is just choose one of these cells. Now, because I've done that previous work, which was the Bluebeam Administrator, plugins, okay, you will see in Excel now that I have this in the right click. All I've done is selected the cell and right clicked. I get this quantity link, and I get 2 options here. Create and preferences, we'll deal with create first. Wants to make sure I have a license of Bluebeam. All right, and it has found the PDF that is open, this PDF that's open right here. And now it gives me the total of all the different totals that I have available to me. And area is one of those. And then for this particular flooring, that's what I'm interested in. And now this is where subjects and other things are so very vital when you set things up. Notice how it gave me these different properties. And if I had done this PDF without setting up these subjects or labels or authors or layers, I would be in trouble. But as you can see here, the subjects are set up for me. And what I'm interested in is tile, which is right there. Notice I have other, I can continue to filter down so I can really get this down. Maybe I'm only interested in tile that is part of the flooring layer. Maybe there's some other stuff that's been done, or maybe I'm only interested in the tile that is of a certain color, or the only tile that was done by these people. So not interested in those, but if perchance I were to select that and then say, never mind, I have this red X to get rid of it. And I can give it a name. And so I would just call it tile area and say, okay. Well, it says it already exists. So let's do the following. All right, there it is. See how it automatically brought it over for me? So it's taken the calculation of all these things that have tile on them. Let me just go back to my Bluebeam here and kind of show you. You can see up here in the legend that was done, that actually gives you the same calculation in a legend, is you can see here tile, it was done with that color. Let's go back to my, there we go. Same thing. And now I can simply just do this, do some calculation this way, this times price, and I get to change that price, maybe $5 isn't. So this does all the Excel kind of stuff. Let's just go down and finish this off real quick. And then I'll go through what these have here. So again, that's an area. And polished concrete. All right. And then the last one, which is hardware. And you could do this for a very long one. Again, my notion here is just try and show you that it can be done rather than going through 4,000 of them for you. All right. And then let me just do this. So when we get the rest of this done, and I could have done this part as part of the setup. So I don't need to do it after I could have done as sort of creating this sort of template or starting point. But I'm just using standard kind of Excel formulas here. And I did do a formula here that added this all up. So let's go back now and show you these options, because the options, all I've done is right mouse clicked on the cell again, and now I get these different options. So they have different meanings and purposes. So if I do edit, it's going to allow me to edit this link. Now, I'm fine with the link as is. So if the link isn't right or you're concerned about the link, meaning did I really do that right, you would go through edit and verify that you've done it right. Delete, of course, deletes the link, meaning the link no longer exists. Source file allows me to choose here. See here how it is chosen this file to choose from. I could add additional. I can add files, I can add folders, so I can really build this up. So it doesn't have to be one sheet only, it could be a series. I could just say certain sheets, like I only want to look at the finished floor plans on the 3 floors or whatever it is. And if I select it, you can see here, I could remove it here. So that is the source file. Here under manage, it tells me again, it gives me now a bigger overview of all the ones I've created, and I could select any one of them, edit it, so I can do it out of cell by cell, or I could do it overall. That's the manage. This shows me whether this link is connected or unconnected. So I can unconnect the link at any moment in time. Maybe I don't trust that the tile is that, or I want to somehow say, well, you know, they have 1,000 square feet of tile, but I'm going to put in 2,000 just because, so I can make the link unconnected at any moment, connected and unconnected. And then under preferences, it just says I can apply a certain color. So if you didn't like gray and wanted another color, maybe I want, that's fine. See, I could put in custom colors. Let me just come back and make a custom color. Do I include the units, and do I include the markup quantity? So that's some preferences I can set. All right. So now let's make some changes. And so now I'm going to do something a little different here, in which I want to show you both screens combined. So let's do this in a certain way here. It's going to take me just a second to show you both screens so you can see. There's that, and then let me increase. Sorry about that. All right. Okay. So let's go through, and what I want you to do is just sort of pay attention over here at this as I do some manipulation. So the 3 things I'd like to do is delete a floor finish. So let me just take, so this is a hardwood floored finish. So look at the row 7. If I hit the delete button, that number changes. And I'll just undo so you can kind of see how it, so if I, anywhere along, because they're connected, and if this Excel spreadsheet was not open, and I opened it later, as long as the connections were made correctly, it'll keep it. All right, so let's modify some finishes. So let's suppose instead of this finish being hardwood, let's make it tile, just for the sake of this. And you'll see that it changes here. Oh, I have to change the color too. And that'll then change this over here. The other thing I can then do also is add, and it'll change it also. So I have the ability, as I make changes here, I can have them be over on the other end. So with just that's the problem with the split screen, I can't quite see correctly. So any changes can be made. So let's go. I think maybe the problem I've made here is I didn't do it up here in the properties. Rather than taking you down, as long as I have them be the same, I can modify finishes, I can add finishes, I can delete finishes in that way. All right. So that's the way that the markups that's the way the quantity link can be done with Excel exceptionally easy. This webinar is sponsored by Ideate. Our goal really is to make you more productive in your work. It is why services are such an important part of our business. It's also why we provide these webinars and the recording that we'll be providing. I encourage you to visit our website, check out our blogs, and follow us on YouTube and Twitter.